I'm Gerald Keneally, and thank you for joining us at Timor Time 2020. To many Australians, Kirsty Sword Gusmão needs no introduction. We've watched her grow up from a young lady helping a people fighting for freedom to the First Lady of Timor-Leste. Her willingness to take a risk, to do what is right or help a friend is in many ways the epitome of what Australians stand for or aspire to. Once the battle for freedom had been won, Kirsty continued and continues to this day to advance the lives of the people of Timor. Please join with me as Kirsty Sword Gusmão shares the risks and rewards regarding the birth of a new nation.
So my journey alongside Timor-Leste really began as a high school student in central Victoria. I began studying Indonesian at Golden Square High School in Bendigo in the 1980s. So that wonderful teaching gave me a passion for the Indonesian language, which I continued on with at university. So I studied modern languages, Indonesian and Italian, at Melbourne Uni. And it was during that time that I got to know a number of East Timorese students who were dissidents who'd been forced to flee their country. And I was absolutely horrified when I heard their stories of persecution, terrible human rights abuses, and basically genocide, of a nation. And even more horrified when I realised all of this was being played out on our doorstep in Australia, and that up until that point I had no knowledge of it. So I started to sort of educate myself and became involved with a local magazine produced out of Melbourne called Inside Indonesia. Made my first visit to Indonesia at around that same time. Absolutely loved the country, but became increasingly aware that there was this darker side to the beautiful emerald rice paddies of Bali, and that there was this, terrible human rights situation, not only in East Timor, but in West Papua and Aceh as well. And I moved to Indonesia in the early 1990s. Wanting to get a bit of a deeper understanding of what makes the country and the people tick. I taught English as my bread and butter job, and on the side I was working for some Indonesian human rights organisations. So that was at the time when I was working in Jakarta as an English teacher by day and a human rights activist by night. I knew a number of the political prisoners that were detained with him inside Cipinang, including João Freitas de Câmara, who had been jailed for 10 years for peacefully protesting following the Santa Cruz massacre in 1991. So I had been regularly corresponding with João, sending money from Amnesty International in to help with his purchase of medical supplies and other essential items that he needed inside the prison. And when Shanana came to know that there was a sympathetic Australian in town, he started writing to me himself and asking for little and big favours, starting little and getting very big, including over time, help with faxing his letters to Bill Clinton, which had to be done from public telecommunications offices. So there was quite a good deal of risk involved in that. But I did that willingly, knowing that, I was being helpful by being a voice. So over time, the intensity and frequency of our contact grew, and the riskiness of the sort of undertakings that I was doing for him and for the other political prisoners. So, there were a number of risks that I took, including in 1993 helping to smuggle 7 young men who were being pursued by the Indonesian military for their pro-independence activism, helping to smuggle them into 2 foreign embassies. And from there, they were able to seek political asylum and eventually found themselves in Portugal. That was very scary, you know. For days, I would be lying awake at night waiting to hear the car, you know, the military vehicle pulling up outside my house to come and arrest me. Fortunately, that didn't happen. And being a fairly discreet person by nature, I was able to, you know, get away with that kind of naughtiness and mischief for, you know, close to 4 years before I eventually needed to make a rapid exit out of the country and return to Australia, only to find myself blacklisted from Indonesia. And look, you know, from the beginning, really everything I've done for Timor has been motivated by my conscience and by my sense of what is right and what is just, and also very much based on my understanding of what Australia's debt of honour is to the Timorese people, and it's a huge debt of honour. You know, the Australian presence on Timor during the Second World War having cost the lives of between 40 and 60,000 Timorese. That, you know, takes a long time to repay, and I think it's the duty not only of successive Australian governments but all Australians to contribute to repaying that debt in any way that we can. I was always very conscious that, you know, as a white foreign woman in Jakarta in those years, I had a certain immunity that would always offer me protection. Whereas they, you know, those young students who were often without any family supports, very little financial support, very little certainty about their future, very precarious in terms of, you know, their educational prospects. You know, they were doing amazing work and very risky work that, you know, at any moment could have led to them being arrested and imprisoned, or even worse, you know, disappeared by the Suharto regime. So language has always been a great passion and interest of mine. So Tetum and Portuguese are the official languages, and there are some 17 other local languages spoken across the country. So I remember probably about 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago, reading a paper from the Mary MacKillop Institute for East Timorese Studies. Josephine Mitchell and Susan Connolly, actually, I think, were the authors of that, talking about the importance of mother tongue-based multilingual education. Tetum was indeed banned during the period of the Indonesian occupation, which was obviously designed for one purpose, and I think it actually only contributed towards Indonesia's failure to win the hearts and minds of the people of Timor-Leste. Obviously, a language is a very essential component of a people's culture and their identity. Similarly, the Alola Foundation, which has done a lot of work on promoting the use of Tetum in schools and in early education settings. So by creating books in Tetum, promoting them through its mobile libraries that travel around the country and promote reading and parent education. I certainly intend to continue to focus attention on the really important and often forgotten issue of language of instruction and the importance that kids understand what they're learning at school. So I established the Alola Foundation, or Fundação Alola, in 2001. And that came about as a result of being approached by a woman from Swai on the southern coast of Timor-Leste, who had just shortly prior to that, following the referendum, lost her 13-year-old son to a militia attack. Pretty much within the same terrible period of a few weeks, her 15-year-old daughter was kidnapped by a militia leader and taken as a war trophy and slave, really, across the border into West Timor. And this woman asked for my help in trying to bring her only remaining child back to Timor-Leste. That young girl's name was Juliana dos Santos, and her nickname is Alola. And I suddenly found myself on this mission to, at the very least, organise a family reunion between Juliana and her family. And that involved me actually going to Geneva to testify at the UN Human Rights Commission along with Juliana's aunt. Out of that experience, I guess I realised that there were very many Alolas in Timor, that very many women had suffered sexual violence at the hands of the Indonesian military and of the militia forces, and that there was a good deal of trauma that needed to be addressed, and lots of needs of women generally. So I guess along that journey, I realised that there was not only gender-based violence, there were needs in livelihoods, maternal and child health, advocacy and education. So those became the pillars of Alola's work over time. The organisation is nearly 20 years old, and we'll be celebrating that birthday next year. And I'm so proud not only of the impact of the work across the country, but of the women's leadership that the organisation has spawned. We have the most amazing Timorese women at the helm of the organisation. Yeah, the motto of the organisation is strong women, strong nation. So I mentioned Australia's debt of honour to Timor-Leste before, and I think that that's a debt that can be repaid in very many ways. I always say that one of the most important things that Australians can do is to visit the country. You know, it's a beautiful country. There's so much to offer. There's also, so many local organisations, whether it be Rotary or church groups or the likes of the wonderful Atlas or Alola, that people can be involved in. And it may not be through financial contributions. It may be with help with raising awareness of the needs of Timor and helping to keep Timor on the radar. 20 years on after independence, it's increasingly difficult to get people's attention. There are, hot spots emerging across the globe all the time. And unfortunately, the media doesn't really focus attention on Timor-Leste unless, there's some problem. So I think we all need to do what we can, leverage our networks to keep Timor in focus within our community, and just as soon as we can, to visit, to spend money in the country, to contribute to boosting the local economy, and I guess very importantly to make friendships with Timorese people, and to help to keep reminding them that we are neighbours and we are conscious of our neighbourly duties to Timor-Leste moving forward.
Education is the key to any development, whether it be for the individual or the wider community. This is particularly true in Timor-Leste, where girls and women have little opportunity to be educated. Currently, only 50% of women are literate, and of the 73% of young women who attend primary school, very few go beyond Year 4. Atlas is sponsoring projects that aim to help young women continue their schooling into secondary education. This contributes to their own well-being, their ability to secure employment, and to their participation into the wider community. Atlas is proud to continue to assist with education in Timor-Leste. 2016 found the launch of the support of girls from Marlborough Orphanage attending secondary education and technical high schools in Dili. The students reside in accommodation which Atlas contributed to the construction of in 2015 at the Central House of the Carmelite Sisters in Farohada. School life in Timor-Leste is still developing, with the small buses failing to cope with the hundreds of students pouring in and out of school each day. Some students must leave their residency around 7:30 a.m. and return around 5:30 p.m. Then comes homework. All courses of study are 3 years in duration. Whether the student is selected for academic studies or vocational studies depends on their ability, their aptitude, and their choice. Those students enrolled in academic studies follow one of two courses: natural science, being physics, chemistry, geology, biology, and mathematics, or social science, being languages, history, geography, and computer studies. Vocational studies cover aspects of general education including language and mathematics, the study of business management and computer skills, and a large variety of skills depending on the course chosen, some of those being sewing, hospitality, cooking, health, and hygiene. Each student is consulted regarding their preference and their hopes for future life. The aim is to provide each one, according to their ability and preference, with educational opportunities to build their lives in society, to provide for themselves and their families, and to contribute to the development of their nation.
Your continued support is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to contribute financially to this Atlas project, please visit our website to make a donation. There's a number of ways you can support Atlas, none of which involve money. Visit our website, atlas.org.au, and subscribe to our email newsletter. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atlas East Timor. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Atlas East Timor. Thank you for your continued support.